Welcome to Leading While Human. This is Sean Gaillard with my wonderful thought partner and co-host, Sonia Matthew. And this is the space where we explore the evolution of leadership through courage, belonging, and people first practices. And Sonia, you nailed it in our kind of conversation in talking with our guests. Like we are talking to the author of our textbook for this podcast, the official book companion, the official textbook for those that are taking notes at home.
I love it. And here is the textbook right here. We got it right here. Can't miss it. Yellow and bright. We're excited. Well, welcome everyone to our third installment of Leading While Human. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our amazing guest. Marcel Schwantes is a speaker, executive coach, author, and global thought leader. His 2025 book, Humane Leadership, Lead with Radical Love, Be a Kick-Ass Boss, offers a revolutionary framework for leaders to flourish on the job. He is the creator of the highly rated Boss to Leader course and host of the top-ranked Love in Action podcast. So we're excited. I am just going to go ahead and kick it right back to you, Mr. Sean Gaillard, to start with our leading question. Actually, I'm going to start with a question, right, Sean?
Yeah, you got it.
I'm just so excited.
I know.
My jam. Oh my goodness. And we were talking earlier about just how we are living this right now, Sean, right? We are living, how do we get it all done with the numbers and the data and those things we must do, but we're still being human. That is the challenge. So I'm going to ask you, Marcel, in your view, your experience, your expertise, why does human-centered leadership matter, especially now?
Well, especially now, and by the way, thank you guys for bringing me onto the show. I am honored to be here. Just want to show my acknowledgement there. But okay, to your question, we're at a day and age now that we're losing touch with our own humanity. Without getting into all of the reasons why this is happening, why society is so divided on so many issues. We're really losing the ability to see each other through humanizing ways, and that's the reason why I had a love slant to my book. Love in this sense is actually practical, actionable love, borrowing from the Greek term agape love, which is not around feelings or emotions. It's around action to further the causes of humanity, whether that be in the business world, in our communities, or inside our own homes, right? So human-centered leadership and the way that we relate to each other in the year 2026 is even more important for that reason, is to basically break down the walls of division. And we can talk about so many benefits of human-centered leadership in the workplace, in business, in this case, for this conversation, in school settings, right? So when we elevate leadership in a human-centered way, you're going to reap all kinds of benefits that travel downward to those communities that you serve. In your case, it would be the educators, the teachers, as well as the students. So that's my initial thoughts.
Yes, and agape love. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that, because that's a central theme throughout your book.
Yeah,
And it's deep, right? So give us some more about agape love.
yeah. So as I did the research, I kept stumbling into spiritual disciplines, spiritual practices, and from various religious worldviews, right? And since I am a Christian, I went through the scripture of what's pointing to agape love, and I landed on the Paulinian text that you will find in the book of First Corinthians. And so as I investigated more about agape love being like love that is for acting on behalf of someone else's well-being, doing good in the world, removing obstacles from people's path, right? There was a lot of love in that. And so as I broke down those verses, it basically came down to five leadership principles that not only were applicable back then, and he was talking about love, but as you translate that over into the business world, it is backed by the science. And so science has validated with what most world religions, in this case, the Paulinian text, right, that informed my work. Science has been validating that, something that we've been knowing for, a couple of millennia now. And so the framework for my version of agape love came down to five principles, which is what the book is about, right? Leadership is patient, leadership is kind, leadership is humble, leadership advocates for people, and leadership is trustworthy, which all of those are going to lead to trustworthy behaviors that increases your capacity to trust one another in the workplace. And boy, let me tell you, when you have trust at work at a high level, magic happens.
Oh, I love that. Drop the mic on that. Magic happens. Magic happens. And the second one that you mentioned, kindness, we have seen a lot of kindness versus niceness in the science, coming from what Brené Brown has studied. We have really seen that in the education world come out, and leaders are understanding what that looks like. Like you said, the actions. So what are the boundaries we're putting into place? How are we showing people accountability? How are we making sure that we're fair, but we are not necessarily people pleasing? Because that is a misconception. Just because we're loving, it's not. That's the misconception sometimes. And that's why this pod is so important, so that we can really help people understand that's not the narrative. And we're here to rewrite that narrative. Sean, I'm going to toss it over to you. Thank you so much, Marcel. That was amazing.
Some great, thank you, Sonia. There's some great rewindable moments here that Marcel just dropped in, and really, what I would kind of prelude my question with is, so often in education, we do stay within our tunnel, and sometimes we have tunnel vision. And I know that there are educators and school leaders and superintendents and principals and assistant principals and all kinds of folks that also go beyond just reading books and magazines and articles and journals about education. That actually is what led me to Marcel's work. I am a proud reader and subscriber to Inc. magazine, where I've been reading Marcel's articles and bits over the years, and then just kind of recently came across and learned that he had written Humane Leadership. So, Marcel, I'm going to kind of frame this question for those educators who are either in the space of reading things like Inc. magazine or Harvard Business Review, and for those that don't. It's okay as well. So, what are some organizations that kind of come to mind? And I know that you work a lot with different organizations and businesses and companies in which they are emblematic of the principles of humane leadership that you write about in the book. What are some examples that we educators can kind of look towards and maybe find some case studies on?
Yeah, I think the one that comes to mind is Barry Waymiller. It's a now $3 billion manufacturing company, and their longtime CEO Bob Chapman, who I recently interviewed on my podcast. You want to check that out. Bob started many decades ago. I think he's in the 70s now, and he is now the chair. He's kind of given the reins over to his son, right? Passing the torch down. But Bob says that he didn't start out as a human-centered leadership leader back then, because he wasn't taught that. As he came up through the ranks, he had bad examples of how to lead people through the relics of the industrial age, right? Do as I say, it's top down, it's autocratic, because back then that's what worked, right? People were just in factory lines. and they
Hmm.
needed just commands. And they just had basic necessities to put food on the table, to provide for their families. We're in a completely different world now.
Mm.
Human performance is predicated on so many leadership factors. And you can draw this into so many studies that are out. Gallup, for example, puts out tons of data
Yes.
on the impact that the immediate manager has on employees. So translate that to your own environment in education, in your school settings. What does that look like, right? And so Barry Waymiller would be that example. And you can do a Google search on on their company and how they treat their employees. They treat their employees as humans first. And Bob will go as far as saying that the employees are their true customers. Yes,
Mhm.
they have a customer base, right, to be able to profit and all that. But he serves his employees first, and he has taught his managers, which is a global organization, to meet the needs of the employees first. So it's a very bottom up kind of a servant leadership approach to, again, we're talking about practical love here, right?
Mhm.
And if we extend this idea of bettering society, think about this. Society is a mess, a hot mess right now. What if we started to teach our leaders in our schools, in our businesses, to
Mm.
actually start caring for people? How much of an impact will we have outside the corporate walls, outside of our campuses, right? And so, I'm making a case for teaching what should be leadership 101 and what should be common sense, but it's not common practice in the world that we live in.
Yes.
Because we're seeing more toxicity and more narcissism rise and float to the top. And so we have to push back against those forces that aren't serving humanity, right? To experience flourishing on the job so
Mm.
that they can go home and be happy about how they feel about work translates to a really positive home life as well, right? So
Mhm.
it transcends so many different things, and you're passing on the those virtuous behaviors and those practices down to the next generation. I have a 12-year-old, and I'm teaching him all about servant leadership now. I
Nice.
need to start planting those seeds now. And in order to, make a drastic transformational shift in society. And I think that we all have a responsibility as business leaders, as educational leaders, to do that now inside our own workplaces, yes. But look at the next generation coming up as well and start investing in their future.
And that actually, is a call for us in the schoolhouse, in districts, in organizations, and it
Yeah.
is it is a challenge right now. It is a very tough tightrope, so to speak, that we're all walking on, because there is high stakes accountability for testing. There are bottom lines. There are all of these kinds of issues and things that frankly are dumped in the schoolhouse,
Mm.
that we are held accountable for, and the cycle has to be disrupted
Yeah.
in some way. It has to be. Um, so I really value and appreciate that response, because it has to start somewhere. Yes, it has to start at home, but also it has to be sustained and flourish in schools, and it really requires some bravery, some courage, but disruption in the kindness of senses, but in the powerful of senses as well, to do something different, because we're breaking people,
Yeah.
and we are in many ways, I think, perpetuating toxicity and inhumanity.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. There's a real hidden cost of toxic leadership when you talk about how much money we're talking about,
Yeah.
billions of dollars being spent on healthcare cost. And you can point that right back to what's going on in the workplace that's causing people to break down and to be more anxious and to take on so much stress that they can't handle it anymore. So you're seeing a rise in absenteeism.
Hmm.
People don't want to go to work, so they call in sick because they hate their boss, they hate their workplace, they hate how they're being treated, right?
Hmm.
And it's the total breakdown of society because they go home and they can't now have a good home life because I have to go back to that environment tomorrow and I
Yes.
don't want to, right? But I
Yes.
still have to provide for my family. And so they go into work sort of just kind of going through the motions and not giving their best and not giving their all. Because in stifling, toxic, top down command and control management structures,
Hmm.
you're not going to get the best out of people. And so that's going to hurt if you want to talk from a business standpoint, that's going to hurt your bottom line or your top line, right? If you're in a more business environment than education. But I think that trickles down as well to educational settings because you guys have your own expectations for financial performance and board expectations as well, right? So start with your leaders. How are your workers, your staff, your administrators, your teachers experiencing their work? And start gathering the data to really understand what's going on in the trenches, how they feel about what they're doing,
Yes.
right? Because I'll guarantee you that the perception at the upper echelons of corporate society, the perception differs drastically. There's a huge gap between what those at the top, the CEOs, the administrators, the principals, the perception gap of how they're doing is going to be drastically different than what the perception is of those closer to the ground level, closer to the action. And I say this because I'm backing it with the data in my own surveys and leadership assessments. There's always that gap. And so we need to be able to close that gap. How we do that is to build more awareness at the top. We have to educate those at the top of the food chain to let them understand really what is current reality. Okay,
Hmm.
that's going to take some humble pie.
Yes. A few slices,
Yeah.
multiple slices of humble pie. And I think one of the things that resonates, Marcel, is and I say this in education and probably in business and industry as well, is
Mhm.
you know there's the bottom line, and there's doing your best, but that bottom line, at least in a schoolhouse, can't be the end result, or the end game can't be test scores at the end of the school year. So if test scores, if that's your game, if that's what it has to be, then how do we sustain that? How do we sustain that good result? Now, obviously, we can't do it at the behest or the sacrifice of one's humanity. So,
Yeah.
and I know in business and industry, it just can't be, hey, we're gonna make it to the quarter, right? Or even in school, we're gonna make it to the quarter.
Yeah.
So, I just there's just so much value in what you say, and power.
Yeah.
So, Sony, I see you taking notes, as you typically do in all of our episodes, and I just see those wheels of yours turning.
Oh
So
my
I'm
goodness.
gonna toss it to you, my friend.
Yeah, you know me so well. My wheels are absolutely turning. And I think about when you said, you use the word courage. That is an act of the heart. So we
Yes.
have to, as leaders, not only want to do the work, but understand why we're doing the work because we care about people. Okay, that's the bottom line. Now, you also, Marcel, you said data. I think about the role of leadership. The role of leadership is to be multipliers of what is good, right? It's to be multipliers of what is good. So when we have the courage to say to ourselves, okay, we're going to, because data doesn't lie, okay, we're going to be willing to not only use that data, take the data, use it, and then present it forward to say, this is what we are seeing. So what that looks like for me as a school administrator, and for Sean as well, I'm thinking, I know when we talk about action, love is an action. And when we are actually caring about, we're in that daily space of showing that we care about our people, we're listening to them. Okay, so that is data. We're not, and they have to feel, you said trust in the beginning, Marcel. They have to feel like they can trust us so that they can tell us how they're actually feeling, right? Because if they don't trust us, if we haven't cultivated that, they're just going to say, oh, fine, all is well. Yesterday alone, I was in my building and I had two particular staff members who gave me some depth of what they're dealing with. Okay. And it couldn't escape me because now I'm feeling what they feel. That's just human nature. But they were trusting enough to tell me how they were feeling. So as my wheels are spinning, Sean, I think about, yes, we are doing something with this podcast. We are doing what we can. And if we can multiply just a little bit, if we can affect just one person, and I'm excited about the webinar that's coming up that you two are facilitating, then we are doing the work. And this is a call to action. So thinking about, oh, this is what I'm hearing. Okay, this is what is going on. What can we do within the framework of our system? So that leads me to our last question. And I could listen to you all day, Marcel. You have so much breadth and depth when it comes to this work, so much research behind it. And I want to get into your story as well. I'll save that for another day, Sean. We're trying to make sure within the system, right? We got a time here. Okay. I want to get, because the story is going to tell a lot about like the why we're doing this work and what keeps us in this work. And I know that's and I'm thinking as I'm thinking about the question, maybe I should ask him that because I think I would need the advice, but I think I might have given y'all the advice, right? I think what I want to ask, I'm shifting. Marcel, I want to ask you, and this might go back to your story, so that will help our viewers, is given the work that you're doing, what is keeping you in this work? What is keeping you actually showing up on a Saturday to the little people like me, not so much Sean, he's the big guy.
No. I'm
Podcast
6'2", but I'm a peon.
and sharing this work with us. What keeps you in this work? And please bring in your story as well, because I know that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, so much of, if I say, many of you probably can relate to this, that most of us should have a calling, a personal calling in life.
Yeah.
And many times a calling or a place of passion comes from trauma or some level of suffering in your past that has woken you up, shook you, and said, this cannot go on anymore. And for me, and spoiler alert, right? The introduction of my book is my story that I won't give that away, but it's a story of one of those horrendous experiences that I had that led to a lot of health issues and emotional trauma, etc. And so, sort of rising from the ashes back in 2005, 6, around that time frame, actually earlier, 2003, I realized that there is a better way to lead in corporate America. Oh, whether business, industry, education, healthcare, it doesn't matter, government, nonprofit, right? And I realized that we still hang on to things that no longer serve humanity in the day and in the times that we're in now. It may have worked back 60, 70 years ago. And yet, business and industry in particular still they still hang on to the relics of that era
Hmm.
as the measure for success. And so what happens? They they identify or misidentify or promote the wrong people based on a set of criteria for what makes an effective leader that is no longer either relevant or applicable.
Hmm.
It's obsolete. And yet we still hang on to these identifiers. We hang on to this illusion in our minds of charisma, for example, being a an indicator of good leadership. Well, charisma is just on the surface, right? They're thinking about somebody that walks into a room and lights up the room because they're charismatic, or they speak louder than everyone else, right? Or they have high energy, and so they equate that with success traits of leadership, right? Take confidence. You might have, and yes, we all need confidence, a level of confidence to lead well, right? But yet, if you get somebody that is too confident, then overconfidence shows up, which then tends to be narcissistic behaviors that start to float to the top. And so, yeah, and so getting back to your question, is back then I just mentioned a few examples of the kind of leaders that were over me. And so I said there's got to be a better way to lead, and that's when I started my research, and you know, it started to find that there are so many organizations. I mentioned Barry Waymiller. You know, back then Southwest Airlines was a great model for human-centered leadership and how they treat their employees and how that translates to great customer service. There's the correlation, right?
Hmm.
And great employee experience, great customer experience. So take that to your educational spaces as well. It's definitely applicable. And so I just realized, okay, you know, we need to shift the mindsets of leaders. And that's where I began my work. And it's still going against the grain. Here we are, 2026, still talking about it
Hmm.
as if the strongholds of power and charisma and control and hubris are still traits that we, you know, that we aspire to, because you got a lot of people that actually aspire to have those traits because that's their orientation. Oh yeah, to succeed and be, you know, and have a profitable business, I have to go and take the hill. I have to kill the competition. I have to do whatever it takes at the expense of people. And those are usually the employees that are suffering. One company that I tracked, they they're no longer in business. They were profitable for a few years and until their turnover was 60% in my exit interview reports, right?
Hmm.
60% turnover. And that went right back to the CEO, and the CEO's style was very, very, you know, driven and controlling, and he was a visionary. He was a creative genius in the advertising space, but he was losing people left and right, and the business eventually tanked because it could not sustain the hemorrhaging of people, because you know every nowadays for every person that quits you're spending $25,000 per head to replace that person. So attrition is hugely costly. And again, I'm speaking from business and industry. I don't know what that is like in education. So I know I got to step off my soapbox here because you asked me what kind of like bring it back to what makes me do this. It's passion. You know, it's a calling, it's mission, and it's what gets me up in the morning every day.
Sean, I can't. If I start talking, I'm just getting chills. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you so much for doing this work, and I'm excited for what's ahead. I'm going to leave you I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Sean. Not because my silence is not that I have nothing to say. I just don't want to go over time. But I will read this one comment that is written on the cover of your book by Stephen Covey. We all know who Stephen Covey is, right? And it says right at the top, this pivotal book is vitally needed today. It's a life-altering read. So I'm going to leave it with that. I'm thanking you. And Sean, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you to close us out.
Thank
So I
you.
got to follow Stephen M.R. Covey. Thanks, Sonia. How can you? I mean, I'm with you. So, I mean, what a great endorsement, Marcel, from one of the great voices in leadership. But then I would also say one of the great endorsements for a leader who I deeply respect, and that's my colleague Sonia Matthew. So you really are speaking our love language literally, and I'm very very grateful for you. So for folks who want to follow your podcasts and follow you, whether it's Inc. Magazine or pick up the book, what are the best venues for folks to connect with you, Marcel?
Yeah, marcelschwantes.com is my website, but I'm very active on LinkedIn, Marcel Schwantes there, and I also write on very busy on Substack, and just a quick Google search, Marcel Schwantes Substack will land you in the right places, and feel free to subscribe there to get my articles.
Wonderful. Yes, it and Marcel is very. I can attest to this. Very generous with his sharing and very generous with his interaction, which kind of led to him being a guest here. And Sonia made mention of the fact that we do have a small little project that's coming up on the 9th of March. Which I'll be promoting very, very soon, where we talked about disruption. And it's a little thing that we call Disruption Table, an opportunity for us to talk about kind of these truths and ideas about how to lead like a human. And so, if you are interested in being a part of that, it's kind of a free invitation for folks, whether regardless of role, regardless of title. We are all called to lead, and we're all called to lead like a human, and we're all called to lead with love. So, stay tuned for more details on that. Marcel Schwantes, thank you so much for being part of our conversation today, and I know that Sonia and I will never forget this conversation.
But
We in a very good way. You've just really resonated with us, my friend.
I want to thank you both, especially for being ambassadors for human-centered leadership. We need more people to rise up, and you both are doing that through a space like this. So thank you.
Oh, that means the world. Sonia, what I know you. What's a takeaway, my friend? I mean, besides take away the book. Yes, you must take away the book. Humane Leadership, Lead with Radical Love, Be a Kick-Ass Boss. It's on Amazon. Have your local bookstore or library order it and get it. This is a great book study book for any PLC or any book club or what have you.
Yeah, the first thing I did not know you were on LinkedIn, so I went ahead and connected with you there, Marcel. But my takeaway is really to continue to spread this word, and I will do that. And I'm so grateful for social media because it allows me to have that platform to connect with people worldwide. So we will continue. I will continue to do that, Marcel, because I'm
Mm,
committed. I am committed, and that passion, I don't know how passion can ever go away. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's who I am, right? It's who we are. It's etched in our DNA.
it is.
Yes,
We
yes,
have to have something to fight for, right, in the world.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Thank you again, sir, and we'll see you again. I'm looking forward to the roundtable.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Leading While Human. This is Sean Gaillard with Sonia Matthew with our amazing guest, Marcel Schwantes. He is the author of Humane Leadership, Lead with Radical Love, Be a Kick-Ass Boss. I will put links to this book, ordering this book, and all of his sites in the show notes. Again, leadership is not about what we do. It is about how we show up for people. This is Lead While Human. Thank you so much for tuning in.